Hello and welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Payments campaign. I'm Alistair Greener. The compliance burden on global payment providers is growing. Governments have always encouraged innovation in the payment space. However, regulators have recently hardened the rules that govern the handling of consumers' transactions and money. The more jurisdictions a company operates in, the more vigilant it needs to be of minute changes in regulation in order to avoid fines. So, if the rules are changing so fast, how can payment firms comply with them as they grow and innovate? This is what we'll be discussing with Rosanne Spagnolo, Chief Content Officer at leading compliance intelligence firm Vixio. Before we get to the whole burden of compliance, I just want to think about the regulatory authorities for a second, because they're clearly doing this for a reason. There's clearly a thought process behind this. Give us an indication of where we're going. Why are they thinking like they are?
I think if you look at the last couple of years and the transition from cash to digital payments, that opens up consumers and businesses to fraud and other risks that traditionally haven't been there. And I think the regulators are now responding and they're saying, you know what, we're going to double down on consumer protection and we're going to double down on risk and compliance, particularly because it's likely that they look at organizations and they say, are you prioritizing growth over risk and compliance? And if you are, then we want to get a grip on that, right? And we want to pull that back and balance it out. And we've seen that in sort of the reduction of licenses granted, for example, within Europe, particularly in Lithuania, which has led that charge in offering licenses for e-money, e-wallets. And the regulator told us, they said, look, we're going to claw back and we're going to start prioritizing sort of business processes and culture. And so there is a question, are payments organizations becoming too operationally complacent and prioritizing growth at the expense of risk and compliance?
But let's say I'm a CEO of an organization. I'm trying to grow my business, but I want to stay compliant at the same time. How do I get that balance right?
I would say, first of all, don't view regulation as a burden. View it as a competitive advantage. The companies that we work with who embrace regulation, who get their head around it, they tend to win in the end. They tend to keep their customers, they grow exponentially, and guess what? They don't have any reputational damage.
Give us an idea where Vixio come into this. How do you help your clients?
So Vixio Payments Compliance is a regulatory intelligence provider to the payments ecosystem. Think of us as a partner that's independent and objective, and we help you navigate regulatory change as and when it happens. We tell you what you need to know when you need to know it. We do that in three ways. We take a look at the past, we look at the present, and then we look at the future. So when we look at the past, it's about helping organizations understand the current regulatory environment within the jurisdictions in which they're operating or which they're entering for the first time. So who are the regulators? What is the enforcement activity like? What's the tax levels like? And they get a sense, is this a place where I want to do business? As you go to the present, right, there is a lot of disruption within the payment space. And part of that is through regulation, promoting innovation and competition, which is great. But it does bring in a lot of newcomers and a lot of competition. And so that will change the regulatory landscape because regulators will respond to that disruption and to that technology to get a grip of it. And again, putting the consumer at the heart of that regulation is important. And then the future, through our flagship product, Horizon Scanning, we scan about 120, 130 markets to really look for regulatory change and then to take that in, document it, and play it back to our customers. So those are kind of the three lenses at which we look at it and help organizations.
So through those three lenses, could you maybe give us an example of an organization you've worked with where they have seen and benefited from the changes that you've been able to help them with?
We have a ton of them, but I think, one organization, it's a global business. operates in about 140 jurisdictions, and historically has been very ad hoc in the way that they capture, monitor, and track regulatory change. We have helped them, give them the landscape of the past, right? So what in these new markets that you're entering, as they look at the present, we've given them, through our insights and analysis, the trends and the developments of what's going on in that market so that they can see where regulatory policy is going, the direction of travel, and then they can prepare for it and they can start feeding that into their strategy, into their new product plans. And then the third piece is capturing that regulatory change in a systematic way. Again, the technology is what's going to help organizations do that in an efficient and a standard way. And it's also about showing the regulator that you have a process and a tool that you can use, because they will ask you, how do you know if you're missing something or not? And to be able to point to horizon scanning and say, we have this tool to help us do that, not only gives them additional assurance and comfort, but also satisfies the regulator's requirements.
As we've established, the regulatory environment is changing rapidly all the time. Could you give us a bit of a glimpse into the future and give us an idea of some of the regulatory events that are in the pipeline that organizations should be aware of?
Yeah, sure. Look, the EU is heavy on their agenda in terms of regulatory change. Some things to look out for, DORA, which is all about operational resilience and tightening that up. MiCA is about crypto, a review of PSD2, which could potentially bring on PSD3, which could be huge, right? To look at, that was put in place to promote innovation and competition. Did it achieve what it set out to do? PSD3 might extend that. And then instant payments in the EU. The UK consumer duty is a big deal this year, and there'll be rules coming into play there. And I think, again, Vixio is here to help you manage the tracking of that and the monitoring of those changes and making sure that you're up to date and that you're not missing anything. We tell you what you need to know when you need to know it.
That was Roseanne Spagnolo from Vixio.